Hello and welcome back to Retfurb. On this video we have a Shimano XT M750 rear derailleur, which we're going to be carrying out a quick refurb on. So as you can see, the derailleur is not in the greatest of conditions. It actually works okay, but aesthetically it doesn't look that great. So the first thing I'm going to do is strip off all the parts that can be stripped from the derailleur. First removing the two small adjusting screws at the back and then the small plastic part which sits in between those screws. And then on to removing the small cable adjuster. Next is the cable clamp screw, and now on to removing the main bolt which holds the derailleur to the frame. So this is probably the most trickiest part. You've got like a small horseshoe clip which holds the bolt in place. Just make sure that you hold it when you do this because it will ping off. Obviously the spring is under load underneath, so you don't want that to come flying out. So just be mindful when doing that. The bolt is likely to be quite stiff in there, so it's always worth just using an Allen key to loosen it and then push the other side of the bolt, and this will get it out nice and easily. There's also a small rubber seal that just needs to be removed. So now onto the two jockey wheels. These are just held in place by Allen bolts, so nice and simple to remove. You can see this area here is well gunked up from oil and grease and dirt, so this was well needed on this derailleur. So now I'm going to move on to cleaning up the parts. So I'm going to scrape off most of the thick stuff before I go on and degrease it, and then once that's removed I can look at getting some solvent based degreaser on a cloth and also using an old toothbrush just to scrape off most of the stuff which is left over. Obviously then the degreaser will remove what's left, and then I can look at getting the derailleur parts refinished and ready to get put back together. On the cleaning part, I've tried to condense it down a lot more so you don't just get bored of watching me cleaning each individual part. The process is, as I said previously, using the toothbrush, using the cloth with a degreaser, and that gets it nice and clean, ready to go on to the next stage. So I've condensed it, just showing snippets of each section that I did ready for the next stage. But you can just see that this derailleur really did need a good service clean. Even if you didn't go on and then paint all the other bits like I have, it desperately needed this just so it could function correctly and go on a lot longer. Fast forwarding into the future, all the parts of the derailleur have been refinished. So the cage has been finished in black, and the main body of the derailleur has been finished in a silver aerosol paint. So they're all prepped up, ready for that. The main part, which is silver, there was quite a few deep scratches on that, so I had to sand them out as best as I could. Some of them I couldn't remove 100%, but as you can see it looks a hell of a lot better than what I did previously. So now we're just going to go through the refit process of the derailleur. Basically just a reversal of what we did to take it apart. So first off, I'm just putting the jockey wheels back in place, fixing the first one loosely so I can remove the cage round, and then once I've got the other jockey wheel I can tighten them both up. Whilst I'm fitting this derailleur, I just thought I would go through the plans for it. So at the moment I haven't actually got a bike for it to go on, but I have got plans for a build that I'm going to do with it. Obviously this isn't going to be the main part on the bike, but it'll be one of the components that will be used for that project, but I'll explain that further when I get to that project. So now that we've got both jockey wheels fitted back on to the derailleur, we can look at putting the bolt back on which holds the cable in place. And now on to fitting the main bolt which holds the derailleur to the frame. So first thing to put back in is the rubber seal before you put the bolt in, and then we can look at greasing the bolt up, putting that in there, and then putting the spring in the back. And once we've got that in place, we can then put the securing horseshoe clip back in. Now again, this is the trickiest part because you've got to sort of turn the spring as you do it, as you push in and put the clip in place. So it gets a little bit fiddly, but it's not too bad. You can see the process involved in what I'm doing at the moment. It's more about just having the patience to twist it and get it in place before you put the horseshoe clip in. Now the spring's twisted and locked in place, you can now look at putting the clip back in. Now to refit the two small adjusting screws on the back of the derailleur. These will just be temporarily screwed in at this point. Obviously once the derailleur is in place on the bike and the adjustments need to be made, then we can screw them either in or out depending on what's required. Now to replace the cable adjusting screw. At this point the derailleur is basically all back together. I'm going to put some grease in around the spring, and also I'm going to use some chain lube around some of the joints. Now I don't actually show that part putting the chain lube in, but I put it all in around the joints. I find it penetrates better than the grease in those areas. And now onto the final part of putting the new decals back onto the derailleur. Now they're not exactly the same. The XT part looks pretty good, but the Shimano deal is a little bit thick. The text looks a bit bolder than what was on there previously, so I may end up changing that at some point. It's not that bad, but I just thought I'd point that out in case someone sort of looks at it and thinks, oh, that doesn't look exactly like it did previously. Stupidly at this point I held the derailleur not in the centre of the screen, so it sort of made it difficult to see what I'm doing, but I've just put the decals on there and I'm just peeling it off, leaving the lettering on the derailleur. And as you can see, now the decals are added, the derailleur is now finished. This has now brought this derailleur back up to the condition that it should be in. It's given it a good service, so it's going to work exactly how it should do, and also aesthetically it looks great. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. As always, I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.